Hello and welcome to the StartupBREW Fargo podcast. StartupBREW is a weekly event hosted by Emerging Prairie in downtown Fargo, where we believe that entrepreneurship is energized over brews. Each week, we bring entrepreneurs, founders, and innovators together because we believe they succeed when they have access to each other and the community that supports them. This week, we welcomed Rebecca Undem with Growing Small Towns. Rebecca has a passion for people. As an inspirational speaker, community advocate, and host of the podcast, The Growing Small Towns Show, she's put her gift of gab to good with the creation of Growing Small Towns. Growing Small Towns is a regional nonprofit that helps small towns in southeast North Dakota be a place people love to call home. Let's listen in.
So the idea for Growing Small Towns actually came to me several years ago, but I officially formed the organization, applied for my nonprofit status and all that jazz in the middle of 2019. And kind of how it came about was that, over a decade earlier, I had moved back to my hometown. It's a town of 1,800 people. We live in Oaks, North Dakota. And it took me a long time to figure out how I wanted to be and feel like myself professionally. We started our family right when we moved back. And after our youngest child had turned about 4, I started to get pretty involved in our local groups. So I was our chamber president for 3 years, and I sat on our economic development board. And after serving in those positions and kind of seeing how things worked, I really started to see some themes, I guess, of how the people on those boards thought about things, and they seemed kind of resistant to change. Big ideas were kind of hard for them to process and kind of maybe scary. And so I started to think, what is my role in this? What can I do? Having been a professional facilitator and kind of people in the people development space for my entire career, I thought, I think I've got skills that I could apply. And I think I've got things that I could do. And for me, it really comes down to, if I want to see something change or something happen in my community, I don't want to be a person that looks around for somebody else to do something about it. So I really started thinking, what could I do? What do I need to do to create the future for my community that I want to live in? And then there was this building. So my grandparents, when I was a little girl, they owned, it's 510 Main Avenue in Oaks, right on Main Street in Oaks. It's in the heart of the downtown district, if you will. Every small town has a downtown district. That's what I like to call it. And it's about an 8,000 square foot building, and they ran a Ben Franklin store from it when I was a little girl. A lot of small communities remember that time really fondly. They were really stellar. They were a stellar organization, stellar stores, and my grandparents ran it. And so, a lot of my friends, especially around my age, we all have really fond memories of going up there because it was the dime store experience, right? With the great candy aisle and all the toys. And it was just amazing. And this building had been sitting vacant for, probably 3 years. There was a hair salon operating in the front corner. Otherwise, it was pretty much vacant. And it's this huge, big, beautiful space. And it literally got to the point where I would go for a run in the morning. I'd run by that building. And I swear to goodness, it spoke to me. It'd be like, I think you're supposed to be mine. And that was just, I couldn't let it go. And I joke that I am married, and this building never spoke to my husband the same way, but he's still in it with me. So that's pretty rad. And so fast forward then to 2019, I started to have an idea of what a collaborative regional approach to community development could be. So my whole thing is how do we help our communities be the kinds of places that people love to call home? And there's a lot of things that make that true for people, and it's very personal, but there's basically 3 pillars of programming that we focus on with Growing Small Towns. One is that we want to help start and expand small businesses. We believe that small businesses are the way forward for rural America. It's not about finding that big employer anymore. We have such a workforce shortage right now that it really is about elevating the status and the ease of startup for mom and pop shops. The second thing is that we really want to focus on art and celebrating art and elevating local artists, like artists and artisans. We believe that community is created around the arts. And so whether that's trying something new, it could be painting, it could be performing arts, and it could just be the ability to express yourself creatively. We think that unlocks a lot in people, and it also ties directly to business development. And we don't know that our small towns have made that connection. And so we hope to foster that. And then the third is straight up people development. If we can help every single person that experiences events and programs at Growing Small Towns, if we can help them crack their minds open just a little bit it changes the way they think about possibilities and they think about challenges. And it's a growth mindset versus that fixed mindset of it is what it is and we can't do anything about it. So that is what Growing Small Towns is about. On October 29th of 2020, my husband and I closed on the purchase of, we call her Dorothy Jane. That's what we've been calling her while we've been renovating her. That was my grandmother's name. As a little girl, I was really strongly influenced by my grandma, Dorothy. She worked alongside my grandfather. She bucked all those traditional roles. I had 3 amazing sets of grandparents. I love to say this. I had paternal grandparents that were, my dad's parents were the farm family. They were the 3rd generation of their family to farm. My mom's parents were Howard and Dorothy Seafelt, which ran the Ben Franklin. And then I had this great bonus set. They just lived down the road from us and babysat us. They let us call up them grandpa and grandma, which was awesome. But they were also a traditional farm family. So I had 2 grandmas that just rocked their role on the farm. And I never felt like that was supposed to be my life. And in fact, it's like crazy that I'm even a farmer's wife, to be honest, because we're now the 5th generation of my family to farm my family's land. And so this whole idea of growing small towns, it's one of the ways that's let me feel like I can thrive in my small community. And so I know that I'm not alone in that. And that's the whole point, is how do we, create a community that people want to move back to and that feels vibrant and rich and inspiring. COVID this last year gave us this opportunity to really to attract some people back home. People suddenly realize like remote employment's a thing now. And so in our facility, so we closed on October 29th, which ironically was 40 years to the day that my grandparents bought that same building. And I didn't discover that until we were on the way back from closing, which was such a God wink, I guess, like validation that we're doing the right thing. It was so special and so cool. And in just a couple of weeks, we'll be hosting our first event in that space. And so we're eyeballs deep in renovation. We're really getting to the finish line now. And in that space will be a beautiful and well technology equipped training and event space along with co-working. And so we're super excited about everything that's to come in Oaks and for all the communities that we serve in Southeast North Dakota. We don't think that the size of your life is determined by the size of your zip code. And so that is the spirit of Growing Small Towns.
After the presentation, we opened up to a live Q&A session with the audience. And today we were joined by our host, Emma McIntyre, who is also the lead coordinator of StartupBREW Fargo. Let's listen in.
So we're going to jump into our Q&A. This is an audience-led Q&A, essentially. So you're going to raise your hand, let us know what your question is, or tweet it at StartupBREW Fargo, and we'll ask you only the best. So does anybody want to kick us off? Got my own question. Yes.
How do you plan to honor the history of the building while renovating it?
If you didn't hear her question, it was how do we plan to honor the history of the building while renovating it? Beautiful question. So one of the things that we did, I have to admit, it's been a hell of an undertaking. The building hadn't been properly loved since my grandparents renovated it 40 years ago. So immediately we're talking about the overhaul of every major system, right? And it's an 8,000 square foot building. So a couple of the things that we were able to do was we exposed the brick and clay tile walls that are on the upstairs around the balcony and on the back wall. They had never been exposed to our knowledge. It's a really risky thing to do because you have no idea what it's going to look like, and it is beautiful. I walk in there and I'm like, oh, and I mean, there's not flooring. I mean, we have a lot of work to do in a month. But that's one of the things. The Ben Franklin store had kind of a layout that a lot of us are probably familiar with a balcony in the back. My mom worked up there in the fabric department, and that whole railing we're keeping. We took out the vertical spindles and had custom railing built, but we kept the top rail. We kept the wood. The wood stairs are all original. We put the windows back in. They had been covered up for 40 years, and so just to have that natural light, it's a typical street to alley building, so it's flanked by buildings on both sides, so it's kind of hard to get natural light. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do. We really want to infuse the space with the history of the building. One of the things I intend to do is crowdsource everybody's favorite memory and somehow display that visually in the building too. It's a big deal. She is right in the heart of Main Street, this building, so a lot of people have strong feelings about it. Thank you for your question.
We did get a question in from Twitter. from Randy Schatz, which is, what does a hometown co-working space look like? How does it contrast with larger town co-working spaces?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And honestly, until the pandemic happened, I had a lot of heavy lifting to do to even explain co-working. Especially people locally, they're like, why would people do that? And I had been working remotely either as a remote employee or my own boss the entire time I lived in Oaks. I'd been working from home the entire time. But again, since nobody saw me, it was almost like nobody believed I actually did anything, which is kind of a thing too, which that's fine, I don't care. But co-working really became obvious once everybody was forced to work from home. And now we can actually make the case that it changes the way you approach your work if you can be around other people, and if it can be kind of an inspiring space. But one of the biggest things for small towns, I have been in a service capacity where I'm meeting with clients. There is no place you can meet with a client in a small town. There's just not. We have a great coffee shop, but if I'm sitting somewhere, every person that walks through the door interrupts and says hi, and it's lovely, but it's kind of difficult, right? So we actually, I think, have a different set of needs. We don't have the volume of people that a community like Fargo would have, but we just have a different pool of people. Everybody that has client meetings, I mean, our membership rates are going to start at $49 a month. So my gosh, if you have 2 meetings a month, that will pay for itself if you can get paper signed or have a confidential conversation, right? Then there's a lot of people that tour through our region. They have sales territories that run a whole region. They have nowhere to land. So we're going to give them that place to land.
I saw a question right here.
What have you learned in change management in small towns?
She asked what I've learned about change management. First and foremost is that if I want to make change happen, I only get to change me. So that's a big challenge. Secondly, I had to get to a point, and I'm not, like, I still waver with this, but not everyone's going to like your big idea. And even if you're really passionate about it, you're a good salesperson, and you're very showy, and you're even really smart, people are still going to tell you they think it sucks. And you have to be willing to just say, thank you for your opinion, and smile and move on, because the people that do get it, that's what I'm hunting for. And I have turned over every single rock. And then, you know, I end up meeting somebody like Emma that just like immediately gets it. And then I think, who cares about the 50 people that tell me this is stupid, you know? The coolest thing a partner of mine said was that even the people that don't like it and don't get it, if, you know, they may not get on the ship with you, but they're gonna get caught up in the positive change, the current that you're creating, they're gonna get caught up in it anyway. And at some point they may go, hey, can I get on now? And they will always be welcome back on. So it's definitely one of the most challenging things.
Goodness. I've gotten goosebumps like twice since you've been here. Between the contract signing date and that analogy, my goodness, lady. Yes.
So that concept of creating change that ripples.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any other business revitalization going on, and what's that look like?
Absolutely. Because I think, again, this is the idea of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's partly what we're trying to build down there, right? And I think it is just, there's nothing that's not possible for us, right? Possibility is what we're trying to help people see, because everybody is so used to hearing no, especially with some of our elected leaders and the people that seem to have the power, right? It's like we go and we ask for permission. And I'm just gonna say, like, do we really have to? What if we just do it? And what does a small and simple way to start look like, right? So, yeah, Main Street in Oaks looks beautiful, by the way, and we've got some really cool businesses. So again, come and see us. I'll give you a tour. But we've got people that are now saying, so this little side thing that I do, that I make, you know, I make cookies, could actually be something that would provide money to me. And I'm like, yeah, it certainly would, and we'll help you. We'll help you figure that out. So that's part of it too, right? It's mining the region for talent that's untapped, and that could become something that it also just creates a community people want to live in. So it's been really fun, and we haven't even opened our doors yet. That's what's been so amazing. And I can only see that continuing to drive that momentum forward once we're open and we're hosting events.
Yes.
obviously your idea is very well received, like here, because everybody's at StartupBREW, similar concepts,
Right.
and that's awesome. Have you found the same enthusiasm with majority of the people in your town or with small towns, or has that been the biggest struggle?
That has been the single biggest struggle. I'll just tell you, I feel safe with you guys. I feel like we're in a nest. Are we in a nest? Oh, it is really hard to feel like people that just met you get you more than the people that have known you your entire life. That is 100% how it works. But it sometimes still is like a sucker punch. Like, what? You don't supposed to go like, do you know who I am? I mean, I'm kidding. I don't feel that way at all. But so for me, how I've dealt with this is to remind myself that it is not my job to convince anybody this idea is good. It is my job to shepherd the mission of this idea forward. It's mine. I'm the only one that can carry my own torch. I can't expect anybody else to carry it for me. And I have to just keep sharing the mission, and the people that need to hear it and the people that want to support it and want to see it come through, they're coming out of the woodwork. The people I've met in the last year more than compensate for the naysayers.
Good.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, but that's how I have chosen to approach it.
Group trip to Oaks. You're first on the bus, sir.
All right, Rebecca, congratulations on all that you've accomplished over the past year. What an exciting project. As a numbers guy, I'm thinking, how did you finance it? Did you take advantage of some state, regional, local financing? And secondly, and you alluded to this before, I think, when you talked about memberships, but how are you going to create a sustainable business model here?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. We financed it ourselves. We did take advantage of a flex pace loan through the Bank of North Dakota. We're under construction right now, so it's a construction line of credit. We'll convert to permanent. I will say with supplies and building costs, what they are, it seems like just the dumbest time in the world to do this. But anybody, entertaining it, you will offset those costs by interest rates. Interest rates are so good, so don't let that hold you back. I'll just say that. Otherwise, all of our startup funding, so I'll share the number. When I first started, I sold this idea to Otter Tail Power Company's foundation, one particular guy, and that's all it takes. You need your first believer, and he wrote me a check, or my organization a check for $40,000. And I went, well, $40,000's not bad, So since then, we've raised $150,000, and none of it has come from the general public. I've done zero fundraising. It has all been public-private partnership, and it is beautiful. I am finding the companies that get me, that get what we're trying to do, and they're actually jazzed about being a part of it. So taking their money, it doesn't even, it's so great. I can't even express what that feels like. And so the sustainability is to continue to nurture those partnerships. They become annual. Of course, we'll have event sales as well. And every single space, the space was actually really smartly designed, and I don't fully get to take credit for that. I worked with a really great architect. Every single piece of the building can be rented out for different events. And so the building itself is going to add a lot of value in terms of sustainability. It's definitely scary though, Paul. As a numbers guy, you should be like, really? I'll tell you, our local economic development guy is like, you're a really good salesperson, but I still have doubts. And I was like, nah, that's all right. Some of it is, once that thing converts and I have a mortgage to pay, then we gotta figure it out, right? We have a plan. I don't know what the community, how they're gonna live in the space. So much of that will come. So we didn't overbuild. That was the other thing. We kept it really open, kept it really flexible, and I am open to changing the model as the community dictates.
I know I saw so many hands. This is so good. Yes.
I'm just going to say, I know you're speaking at the Do-Gooders Conference next month. I'm really excited about that. When you talked about you can only change yourself,
Yeah.
I feel like that is also, that allows other people to change themselves. And it gives that opportunity for growth. But when you mentioned your grandma defying roles, how did that change inspire you, and how does that help help make this change possible? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Oaks, my maternal grandparents were the ones that owned Ben Franklin. My dad's parents lived down the road at the farm. And then I had bonus grandparents, like the old people that watched me, and I called them grandpa and grandma, and they never corrected me. Like they just let me have them. So there's something to be said about the incredible impact of being that loved from an early age. I mean, I do think they instilled in me a sense of confidence and a sense of self-worth because they just loved me. But it was really my grandma Seafelt that was the one that I always felt just this real connection with, because the other two grandmas were farm wives. So I didn't say this, but I never wanted to be a farmer's wife. I never wanted to do that. I didn't enjoy really being a farmer's daughter. I thought it totally sucked. And so when the time came for us to have this opportunity to move back, it was more about legacy. You know, without us coming back, my dad, our farm would cease to exist. I mean, the land would still be there. We'd inherit the land, but we'd be renting it to who knows. So much of it is just about carrying on the legacy of the people that did amazing things. And my grandma, she told you what she thought. She always said, "I'll bet ya." That was like my grandma's thing. Half the time she was wrong, but we loved her anyway. It's like, fine. And I was in Oaks back for every single one of their passings. All of my grandparents are now gone. When I moved back in 2009, only one was gone. So there's something really precious and really special to me. My mom and I cry all the time, like we're in the building doing this, and she'll say to me, she says to me at least a few times a week, "I wish my parents could be here to see what you're doing." And that really keeps me going. You know, it's like this random naysayer on the street that thinks I'm stupid, I don't give a flip what you think. I mean, really, I'm here to honor the people that served me well. And so it's a huge part of what drives me and motivates me. Thank you for the question.
Sarah. First of all, I never thought I'd be a farmer's wife either, and here I am. So we have that in common to start. We're living in North Dakota, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And you're loving it.
I'm loving it. But what does your team look like right now? How do you see that growing? What are you envisioning for the growth for this campus?
So you're looking at it. I just switch hats, which is it's extremely overwhelming. Right now, my team is advisory in nature. You know, so all of these partnerships that we've formed, there's at least one person in each of those major companies that is just in it to win it with me. So I definitely don't feel alone. What comes next is going to be, you know, to Paul's question, after we're I anticipate about a year of solid operations where I have a decent understanding of what's really going to be expected before I actually bring on people to pay. But I'd love to see a director of each of those three areas of programming, because I'd love to see someone run with arts partnership. Right now, I literally just chase every opportunity, and someone said to me, "What happens if you get them all?" And I'm like, "I'll deal with it." You know, I mean, I don't know how else to do it. People have said, like, if all of these land, how are you gonna? I said, I won't manage it. Then I'll have to figure out how to add capacity, right? So scaling is definitely something that we want to do. I'm really hoping that we can change the entire way economic development looks in rural communities, because it's broken. I'm going on record to say that it's broken. It's not working. And everybody burns out, and they're all frustrated, and we're not getting stuff done, right? We're standing in our own way. So how do we make that easier?
Ooh, snap.
Yeah.
More chills, more chills. So many, well, Jake, because you have the smallest community.
Yeah, winner, yeah.
One of the smallest.
One of the smallest.
Do you want small towns to stay small towns?
What a great question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I don't want them to stagnate. So the growth is not about population. You know, it's about mindset. I've actually said before, I just want everybody I meet in a small town, I want their brain to crack open just a fraction. And if every single's mind cracked open just a little bit, new ideas could come in, you know? But another gentleman that I was talking to up here, he said, what if people don't want their communities to grow? What if they don't want new people to move into their towns? He said, well, that's definitely a thing, you know? And all I said was, I'm working with the willing and loving the rest. If you're a small town in my 7-county area and you don't want to play, I'm not going to force myself on you. That's not attractive, right? So it's fine. But I'm working with the willing is also just a really good model for how to not get frustrated, you know, when you run up against people that aren't having it.
We'll take 2 more questions.
Yeah. Sounds like having that space is going to be just super beneficial for community building. How do you do community building without that space? Because it sounds like you've been doing that for a while as well.
You know, I just personally think a physical space just provides a really great platform for cool stuff to happen, you know? And I wanted to own it. I'm a speaker, right? By trade, I speak at conferences and I go into small towns, and I'm not kidding. I one time like saged a room. I mean, I'm a little woo for a small town. I'm fairly woo. And it's just like you walk in and you're like, did somebody just die in here? Like, what's with the energy? It's just terrible. So I wanted to control the environment. I mean, I wanted to create a space that felt the way I wanted people to feel, right? So that was partly why I took the time to do the space. But community building without that gathering space, if you're familiar with the concept of third spaces or third places, that's where community happens, right? So in Oaks and in a lot of small towns, it happens at bars. And that's okay, but I don't know that our brains are expanding or that we're growing all that much at the bar. You know, I mean, it's a good place to have an outlet, but there's personal development, there's business development, there's art classes, there's workshops, there's yoga, there's goat yoga, there's like all of that is welcome. So that's the other thing. If you're sitting there and you're like, I want to teach goat yoga in Oaks, North Dakota, come and talk to me and we'll let you do so.
What's the goat population?
What's the goat? I don't know. I'm a little more keyed in on the cattle side of it, so I don't know.
Yes, well, we'll take one last question before we wrap. I saw a lot of hands up. Yes.
Do you think, like the pandemic's work from home situation, do you think benefits like what you're on?
I absolutely. Absolutely. And I cannot stress enough. So I graduated from high school in 1999. Yes, I turned 40 during the pandemic. Woo! We're doing a redo, by the way. This is my best friend. We were just talking about it. This isn't okay. But when I graduated from high school, I could not see my life. I could not see a future for myself in Oaks because it was not the same. Now there is zero reason for us to encourage our kids to leave to find success. Now, if they want to go and further their education, absolutely, right? Like, we don't have a college in Oaks, you're going to have to do that. But we never tell them to come back. We never tell them that. And now it's time for us to say, you don't have to leave to be successful. You can stay here. And that's an important thing for us in all of North Dakota to be thinking about. Why are we hiring remote employees in Georgia? Why aren't you hiring them in rural Lemoore County? So that's actually one of the things we're partnering with. I've been working with the Fargo-Moorhead EDC to identify the companies that are open to remote employment, and we're going to bring them on down. There are underemployed people in small towns, overqualified, and they take jobs because they want that comfort, that small town life, or they come back for family, right? So let's figure out how to make that easier for them. And yes, the pandemic, I mean, really, it's a huge opportunity, but not just for our rural communities, it's for the employers in Fargo too, and the other big cities in North Dakota.
Yes, well, and this is the question that I'm sure everybody's waiting for, because I'm super excited to hear your answer. What is one thing that each of us can do to help you in the work that you're doing in small towns?
Oh, just pray for me. I'm kidding. You can send me all the good vibes, but seriously, it's thinking about the companies you know, the people you know, anybody that has something cool to offer that would help any individual expand or crack open their brain. I want to meet them and I want to bring them to our region. We're not just pulling from a town of 1,800 people. There's 35,000 people in our 7-county region, and they want to travel to me. We don't always want to come to Fargo because we're always going to come here, guys. No matter what, you're the biggest city in North Dakota. We're always going to come to you. So we just want to spread that love a little bit. So if you know people, you know stuff, you know companies, I want to meet them. And come and say hi. If you had a question that didn't get answered, come and ask. I'm sure you've gathered I'm kind of an open book. to my parents' dismay.
Well, let's give her a big round of applause.
That's all we have for this week's StartupBREW Fargo. Thanks for listening in. StartupBREW Fargo is energized by Emerging Prairie, an organization dedicated to connecting and celebrating the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We'd also like to thank the following sponsors for their support: Pro Resources, Brady Mertz, the FMCVB, Office Sign Company, Fargo Parks, and Midco. See you next time.